It's time now for our meditation. So if you will, if you're comfortable, close your eyes, settle in your chair. I invite you to place your hand over your heart and feel it opening with love. Take a couple of breaths and feel that heartbeat, feel that expansion. Now, I invite you to engage your imagination. You're holding a picture album in your lap. You haven't seen those pictures in years. You turn the page, and there you are, your younger self. This picture captured an image of you engaged in your very favorite pastime. Take a closer look. What are you doing? Notice how it feels. Look at the face of that younger you. You see joy, maybe a quiet smile, or a grin. Maybe you're just out and out laughing. Feel the emotion of that memory. And notice how your body feels. It's energetic. It's young. It's supple. You have a sense of freedom. You know you are safe. And you're having fun. For just a little while, let yourself be the younger you in the silence. It's time now to come back to your grown-up body. Be in this space and this time. But know that that young you is still part of you. So you can start to wiggle your toes and your fingers, open eyes when you're comfortable, and rejoin us today. So this week, in our 3 Magic Words by U.S. Anderson, our book group is reading, it was all about, it was about love, but it started really talking about imagination. Anderson says, every moment of every day, we are engaged in the spiritual force of creating. We hope, plan, consider, desire, act, speak, fear, use our will, love, hate, are joyful, embittered. Always we are creating. There's only one force in the entire universe. It creates all things according to what we conceive, accept, and allow. The right use of this power creates a blessing. The wrong use creates harm, even a disaster. This power pervades the universe, is in all things, is all things. It serves as our masters, or it serves us, or it masters us according to how we perceive it. Imagination. Okay. So I've been, for several years now, I've been living in this question. What is mine to do in my next expression in this incarnation? And it's like a blank canvas for me. I'm clear on some bits and pieces. I absolutely know I am supposed to be here in this place doing what I am doing now. What I don't know is when this changes, how it morphs to something else. But I know that it will. So I felt called to this spiritual community 5 or 6 years ago. I knew then. And I knew as I was called here, I knew when I was being released from my former church. There was no upheaval. It was just a smooth transition of knowing. But I feel very much in transition. And I'm waiting for that call for whatever is next. In her memoir, When the Heart Calls, Sue Monk Kidd describes a threefold cycle of waiting. That's where I'm waiting now. There's separation, transformation, and emergence. She compares this process from caterpillar to butterfly, from larva to cocoon to butterfly. And metaphysically, we can see that as Egypt to wilderness to the promised land. She says, the life of the soul evolves and grows as we move through these three cycles. The process is not a one-time experience, but a spiraling journey that we undertake throughout life. Life is full of cocoons. We die and are reborn again and again. By repeatedly entering the spiral of separation, transformation, and emergence, we're brought closer each time to wholeness, to our true self. And those of us who participated in the recent study of callings are really familiar with this cycle. We have a calling. We feel pulled to something, maybe to do something or be something. And we grapple with it. We try to decide whether I'm going to respond or whether I'm going to ignore it. And let me tell you, if you ignore it, and it is a true calling, you will be very uncomfortable until you say yes. Sometimes we can delay our response for a while. Did you know caterpillars and some other insects can delay for a while their cocooning? It's called diapause. They delay cocooning, waiting for a more favorable season. We do that too. We maintain a holding pattern in familiar territory until we are pushed or we are pulled into that next new experience. At a certain point, we have to get past our resistance and step into the unknown. We have to learn to face our fear and lean into it. Right now, I feel I'm in the closing part of the Egypt phase of my current cycle. My husband's transition marked the beginning of the separation phase for me. And like the Israelites, it's taken me a while to move into the wilderness. You may remember that God had to convince Moses to lead the Israelites. He did not want to do it. And then once he was convinced, God had to set up all kinds of consternation and disasters for the Egyptians to release the Israelites so they could even get to the wilderness to start on that journey to the promised land. Well, I'm hoping I am not going to spend 40 years in this faith. And I'm not going to germinate in that cocoon that long. I had the opportunity to anticipate these changes in my life. I had time to do some visioning and think about what life might look like without Dave in the flesh with me. I was able to surround myself with a beautiful support system right here in Unity Church of Peace. I have a spiritual toolbox. I've stepped up my spiritual practices. I'm learning more about self-care. I'm learning more about who this self is that I'm caring for. So I think I've got at least one foot firmly in the wilderness, and I'm working on this cocoon experience. So when the caterpillar begins to spin its chrysalis, it forms a spiny little protuberance at the end of its abdomen called a cremaster. The cremaster is like a button that holds it in place in its cocoon. It's the anchor point, the place from which the caterpillar hangs. As I was listening to this description, I had an image of the cremaster as my belly button. And seeing myself anchored in spirit and in faith, just as I was anchored to my mother in the womb, being nurtured into the fullness of life. This time, the cocooning, the wilderness, is a womb experience. We're in the unknown, a dark place, waiting on the Lord, living in the mystery. This is a time of surrender. It's about allowing Spirit to guide and unfold us. And just like the Israelites, we are provided with our daily bread, with manna, to get us through this time. We can count on having enough to get us to transition. Not too much, not too little. Remember, they were given only their day's needs, could not store up for the future. So we always have enough. We are in the cocoon. Just as the caterpillar starts to dissolve, so does our old life, and something new starts to emerge. And I love this about the caterpillar. When it dissolves into a kind of a sort of soup and morphs into imaginal cells. I like that name, imaginal cells. So imaginal cells are undifferentiated cells, which means they can become any type of cell. And many of these imaginal cells are used to form the new body. Isn't that a wonderful metaphor for what happens to us? Our imagination is engaged. In my imagination, I see the cremaster. It's feeling little wiggles and jiggles. And that is my intuition center waking up. I'm noticing the God taps. I'm noticing signs and synchronicities that are guiding me to my next life experience. In a recent newsletter, Reverend Donna said this. She read, recently she was reading in Emmett Fox's book, Find and Use Your Inner Power, and he says that a strong wish for something is the voice of God in your heart urging you to take the next step forward. Perhaps there's a desire in our heart that we haven't been giving focus to lately. Maybe we try to make it more difficult or complicated than it really is. Emmett says that's the way God-mind communicates. And to pay attention, because a strong wish is a sacred thing to be respected. I got a strong wish. It's been a wish for many years. Dave and I shared this dream. We were going to take this lovely, leisurely trip across the whole U.S. We were doing a Western trip, and we were going to see the beautiful deserts. I've seen deserts, and I want to go back. We were going to see deserts and mesas and canyons and just have a wonderful time. But we weren't able to accomplish that before his health gave out. So all through this pandemic, that thing has been niggling at me. And it's getting stronger. And I don't know where it's leading. I have visions. I have visions of this little camper behind my little red car, and has a toilet, a shower, a stove, and a bed, and I'm good. That's my vision, but I don't know because I'm in the waiting place. But I can tell you, I can see the big bend of the Rio Grande. I can see Waco tanks outside El Paso. And I can see the great arches of Arches National Park. And I know I see the red rocks of Zion. I've never been there, but I see it. All through our callings experience, no clear idea of my calling crystallized. I couldn't see it. A few weeks ago, I was listening to the Metaphysical Romp 2 podcast about our inner child. I love this too. We hear a lot about that wounded inner child. You know, the one we have to take to our heart and love it into wholeness. The one we have to reparent so that we can claim our own wholeness, uncover the joy beneath the wound. But there's another child within us, the one that was born with heart and mind wide open, ready to take this life experience with zeal and enthusiasm. The one who came into this world innocent and curious. You remember that child. And you see it every time you see a toddler who's out there touching everything they can touch and feeling everything they can feel and tasting everything they can taste. Well, the inner child that I'm talking about is not a childish character, but that part of us that is our childness. And I like that word too, childness. These are some excerpts from a white light paper that the Reverends Bill and Cher Holton have shared with me. Our inner child is an active part of us that wants to be heard and acknowledged. It allows us to access our innocence, playful spirit, our incarnational knowledge, and our wild imagination. Our inner child is an integral part of our adult development. To connect with our inner child, we must explore our unmet desires, propositions, and even prejudices as a child. According to psychologist Carl Jung, the divine child within us represents the emergence of a new, enlivening idea or energy, a renewal and expansion in consciousness. We believe our inner child has its own wisdom. I certainly do. They remind us we're all children once and still have that child dwelling within us. We can benefit from conversations with our inner childness, engage with our childlike capacity for innocence, wonder, awe, joy, sensitivity, and playfulness. Well, I've started a quest to get to know my inner childness. Her name, by the way, is a little bit different than I'm called today. Her name is Vivian Ann. It's like one word, Vivian Ann. That's what everybody called her before she started grade school. I found a couple of pictures. One of me as an infant and the other as a toddler. I looked at those faces and engaged in getting to know her. The eyes say a lot, don't they? Her eyes were bright. They were warm. She was smiling, trusting, and she was engaged in that moment. And as I was doing this process, then other pictures popped into my head. Memories. Playing marbles jacks. We called them bob jacks. Does everybody remember that? Oh, you didn't put bob jacks? It's a little star-shaped metal thingy that's on you. It's on the ground, and then you use a rubber ball, and you have to pick up the jacks. Jacks. Bob jacks. She was running. She was playing outside. She was exploring fields all around her home. And then she's riding her bike. In about the 3rd grade, I was so proud of this, I got a certificate as a safe bicycle rider. And I loved riding my bicycle all over town, and I could do that then. And my favorite Saturday ride was to the library because I loved reading mysteries. I was a Sherlock Holmes fan. Mysteries and biographies were my thing. And climbing. Oh my goodness, I was a really good climber. I used to shimmy up bamboo stalks in our yard and, sway with the breeze. Yeah? And then when I would visit with my cousins, we'd go down, they were on a farm, we'd go down to the filling station. I'd shimmy up the pole at the filling station and whap that little pure sign up there. And they were really jealous because they couldn't do it. And I like to climb trees. So connecting with my inner Vivian Ann reminds me how much I like to explore, to go places, to do things. I really like that aspect of me. And I want to know her better. I'm inviting her to be my companion and my guide as I imagine my emergence phase and I transition into my promised land, the butterfly period of my next life experience. Now, you might find you like your inner child too, and you might want to invite him or her to rejoin you on your journey, to play, to lighten up, to spark your imagination. Bill and Cher offer some tips on communicating with your inner child. I see this as renewing a relationship with a vital part of me. So first of all, we do want to acknowledge that inner child is a deep part of our own psyche. That child lives in us. We can write an occasional letter and talk about the memories and share it from our adult perspective. And once you've made a contact with that inner child, pay attention to your dreams. They may have something to say there. Meditation is a way to open up to intuitive communications with that child. Journaling. Just exploring the relationship. What I did, I'm not a real great journaler, but I've really been working on this lately. So I asked my inner child, who are you? And I got some answers, which I'm not going to share, but I got some answers, and they were all nice. So the other thing was, as I explained already, was pulling out the photographs, as we did in our meditation, looking at the photographs and getting to know, remembering, getting to know that child. You can get back in touch with your playful side. Many of us here are grandparents, and we know what a treat it is to play with the children. And, it's a win-win. They love the attention, and so do we. The next thing I plan to do is I'm hoping to get together with my first cousins who knew me when. So ask the people who knew you when to describe you as the younger you that they knew. And you can visit the homes that you've lived in, the neighborhoods that you've been, the schools, and so forth. But there are more things that you can do. But for my purposes, what I want is I want to remember with my open-hearted, open-minded, curious, playful, younger self. And I want her to help me open my eyes to the possibilities for a vibrant, joyful next phase in this incarnation. So as we emerge from the cocoon, from the wilderness, to the promised land, a new divine idea is revealed to us. And it is through our power of imagination that we nurture that idea with thoughts and visions of possibility and birth our new best experience. So for me, I'm taking Vivian Ann with me, and I hope you'll take your child with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. You know, we didn't plan our color schemes. We didn't even talk about each other. We got this blue and this gray thing going on. I'm so grateful. We always move into our tithing piece at this particular point in time. And here in the sanctuary, we aren't passing the basket any longer. We just have it at the back of the room, so you can deposit your check or whatever if you have that. But thank you to all of those who give automatically and through PayPal if you're watching this at another time, or through Breeze, our software. We're so very grateful for each and every one of you. So let's say our blessings together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, that this is so.